Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. This is Tuesday, September 3rd. If you have any questions or comments or business with this body, come up to one of these microphones, tell us your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind. Call the roll, please.
Cedar.
Here.
Ellery.
Here.
Kinsfater.
Here.
Kupa.
Here.
Laporte.
Here.
McCartney.
Here.
Watt.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, number 4, consent agenda. City Council minutes of August 19th, 2019, regular, and August 21st, 2019, special meeting. Recommendation approved.
Motion to approve. Support.
All right, the motion is made. Support. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have some public hearings this evening. Number 5, I'm going to open a public hearing for A, the Commercial Facilities Exemption Certificate on the Vine LLC. Mr. Casey, or is that you out there? There you are.
Give everybody an intro.
Please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. It's good to be back in front of you. I'm just going to give you a synopsis of the applicant's application that's been submitted. They have submitted under PA 255 of 1978, which is the Commercial Redevelopment Act. It's a tax abatement request by the LLC known as On the Vine, also known as the investors of the St. Clair Inn. And it's for the property that is addressed 503 North Riverside Avenue, formerly Marsala's. And it's for a commercial use of the facility. So I think everybody knows this is a historic facility that was built in 1926. Formerly was a gas station, a filling station. Later they added a service station, repair facility next door. At one time it had fuel tanks in the ground that have since been removed and remediated, and when the current owners were investigating the property, they did do a brownfield site assessment of the property and determined that it is clean property today, the particular building that we're considering tonight. The facility has aged significantly, as you would imagine, since 1926. It has old infrastructure in it, old wiring, old plumbing, lacks most current IT infrastructure or fiber optics. There's issues with the HVAC system, some roof repairs, and some tuck pointing that are needed on the building. So those are the things that concerned the building owner when they purchased the building. What they're proposing to do is to convert the facility into a Starbucks coffee shop. It will be a franchise that will be owned and operated by the owners of the St. Clair Inn and will support the St. Clair Inn's operation, as well as being a standalone facility. In addition to that, they are going to sell baked goods in it, and the baked goods will be made fresh by the bakery that will be servicing the St. Clair Inn and the Harrington Inn in Port Huron. They're also going to have a gift shop in the facility as well. Their proposed investment in this project is $1.5 million, of which $665,000 of that is fixed assets or building improvements. And the project will create 18 permanent jobs and 10 construction jobs. The applicant is seeking 12-year abatement. That's their request. And the way that it works is that the assessment of the building, the current assessment, is frozen for however many years you potentially approve for this abatement. So it's frozen at its current level, and all the taxing jurisdictions continue to receive taxes from the property during the length of the abatement. What the abatement does is basically address the new investment that they have to make to bring the building up to a current standard. That investment, essentially the new assessment on that portion of the building is exempted for a number of years. The land and any personal property in the building are not abated, so those continue to provide taxes to the jurisdictions throughout the years. That's all I really have for you. We can take questions later if you'd like.
Well, this is just a public hearing. We're not voting on anything tonight, so I guess we'll open to the public if there's any questions about that. I do have one question. Is this a 50% abatement?
No, as I indicated, it freezes the assessment. So all the current property value continues to generate taxes for all the taxing jurisdictions. What you're going to be doing is exempting the improvements that are going to be made on the building that will ultimately increase the value of that property. So let's say the current assessed value was $200,000, right? And after the improvements, it increases to $300,000. That $100,000 increase is what the tax abatement addresses. And it will essentially exempt that portion of it from taxes for however many years you approve.
But we keep the taxes for the $200,000 for the next 12 years.
Correct.
All right, do you want to just stay right there? Because if the public has some questions, it might be best for you to.
Bill Clement, 1374 South Riverside. I got a couple questions. What is the current taxes on that building right now?
That would be a question for the city.
I mean, the taxes on the building and the land. There's two separate numbers, correct?
Understand. The tax abatement, by the way, does not apply
I
to the
know.
land.
What's
so
the two numbers right now? What are they paying taxes on,
you'll
on
have
the
to
building
ask
and the
city
land?
that.
I don't have that number.
You don't have that number? Okay. How many jobs is it going to create?
18 new jobs and 10 construction jobs.
And when's the completion date?
Their plan is to complete it right around the time that the St. Clair Inn opens, so in approximately 30 days.
So 30 days, so does that 30 days play into the abatement? Do they have to be done in 30 days? Is that part of the application?
I can answer that two ways. The first is City Council has 60 days to act on their request for a tax abatement. So this was filed several weeks ago.
Good.
Secondly, they have until October 31st to submit the package to the State Tax Commission. If the council, or I'm sorry, if the city fails to do that, then the applicant will lose an entire year of the abatement.
The reason I'm asking is the property adjacent to it, across the street, has the same thing, correct? Abatement?
Yep.
And the due date on that application was June of 19. It's well past June of 19. It's not done yet. They weren't compliant with what was on the application.
Well, the abatement also doesn't start until December 31st at the end of this year.
So if they're done by the 31st, because the application said June 19th.
No, what happens is they essentially, it's up to council, but they potentially could lose 1 year of the abatement, but they can still continue to.
Okay, I'd like to know the numbers, because when the next one comes up on the school, I'm going to ask the same question on what is taxed at, the building and the land. You know, what do you give it abatement on?
Thank you.
You know, what is the current tax base on them?
Anybody else?
That's your question.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, then, is anybody from council? All right, then we will move on to Part B of the public hearing for the commercial rehab exemption certificate, SMDRP LLC. And I'm thinking that's you too, Mr. Casey.
So this is the tax abatement request under a different public act. This is under Public Act 210, which is the Commercial Rehabilitation Act. And as you indicated, it's SMDRP LLC, which essentially, again, is the same investors who are doing the St. Clair Inn project. The address of the facility is 301 North 6th Street, and the use is mixed use, primarily defined as commercial in nature. So this is the St. Clair Middle School property, which was originally built in 1921 and 1922 and served as a middle school for both middle school age students as well as high school students. And at the time it was constructed, it replaced the Union School that was built in 1863 on the same property. So it's just a continuation of that use. After the school left the facility, which was, approximately 10 years ago, I believe, it has continued to serve the community in a number of different ways while remaining its tax-exempt status. Those uses have included primarily commercial in nature, things like recreational uses in the gym, a church, daycare, and other similar uses, including things like community meetings and some of the classrooms. So it's continued to be a productive facility for the community. However, again, it was built in 1921, and it's facing some significant funding challenges for that building to be brought back up to a viable use in the future. Some of the same things I said about the Starbucks are true of this facility. The wiring is older, the plumbing is older, IT infrastructure throughout needs to be replaced, roofing repairs through different parts of the building, the HVAC system, and so forth. In terms of the proposed uses of the facility, what the investors are proposing is to do a mixed-use project, which includes both a residential component and a commercial component, both eligible under this particular act. The residential component would consist of approximately 64 apartment units, which would be efficiency apartments, pretty much standard size, that would include kitchens and bathrooms. The commercial component would include a bakery operation, which would support the St. Clair Inn and the Harrington Inn, as well as providing some goods for the Starbucks coffee shop. That's going to be a separate operation from the residential component that's there, but they're trying to take advantage of the kitchen that's already in the facility. In that kitchen, they would also be having to replace some of the ovens and the other appliances that are there, but it's a completely different use from how that kitchen used to be used, which was to prepare food to feed the young people that were going to school there. With this facility, they're primarily going to be using ovens and doing baking. In addition to that, there are a couple of gyms in the facility. There's an auxiliary gym and the main gym, which are being proposed to be used for recreational purposes. In particular, the auxiliary gym, there's going to be a change there. They're talking about putting turf on the floor and using that for types of sporting events that would use turf, like soccer, for example. They're also talking about possibly putting a climbing wall or a rock wall in the auxiliary gym as well. And then finally, in the backroom library, they'd like to convert that into more of a traditional workout facility, but it would have better equipment in it than the St. Clair Inn will be able to provide to their customers. And so the thinking is for customers that want a more rigorous workout, they could go to the middle school. And also the tenants that are located in the space could use it as well. So the investment to do all of this work is $4.38 million, of which $3.6 million of that is going to be fixed asset, in other words, building improvements to bring it up to a usable and viable standard. The project will create 26 new jobs. 20 of them will be administrative positions, and 6 will be people that work in the kitchen. The applicant is seeking a 10-year abatement on this, for this request. And this abatement works similar to the Starbucks. There's a couple of minor differences with it, which I'll explain briefly. The first is that this was a tax-exempt property. So it was providing no taxes to any of the taxing jurisdictions. Prior to this abatement going into effect, the city had to establish the market value of the property, which they have done. And
Sorry, Claire.
here you go. So for the land, the city has established the taxable value of $223,882 and the building value of $252,370. The reason why that's relevant is because that's going to be new tax dollars to all the taxing jurisdictions. In other words, the property is no longer exempt. So with those building values applied, the city and all the other taxing jurisdictions will now begin to capture some tax revenue off of the property.
So if the abatement's approved, that's the taxes that are going to be paid for the next 10 years?
Correct.
Off of that value?
Yes. Otherwise, it's similar to the other abatement in that it freezes the value at those levels, or the building value. It freezes it at that level. And then after the improvements are made, the increased value gets exempted for up to however many years you might approve for the project.
This abatement, is it for the building only or land as well?
Land is not eligible for the abatement,
Okay.
nor is personal property.
Okay.
So it's just going to be
Just the building.
Yes. One other difference I wanted to mention is that the schools and the state education tax are not subject to the abatement. In other words, the schools are going to be made whole throughout this whole process. Even after the improvements are made and the building value is adjusted, the schools will get their tax capture based on the new value, as will the state education tax. That is one difference of this type of abatement over the one that we just talked about with Starbucks. So I'll take any questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions from council? Public?
Bill Clement, 1371st South Riverside. I asked a question a while ago. How can you get a commercial abatement on a piece of property zone in residential, 1RA?
So the Public Act, PA 210, doesn't address the zoning of a piece of property. That's up to the local community to determine.
So they approved it.
Pardon me?
They approved it.
Well, you'll have to ask the city that question, I guess is what I'm saying.
We haven't voted on it to this public hearing, that's all.
I'm just curious how you could do it. And you stated that the schools continue to get, now what about everybody, all the other taxes, people that put taxes down? The seniors, the sheriffs, the drug task force, our millages, how is that done?
Yeah, good question. Those are all what we would call local tax or local mills. And those are subject to the abatement. So they will be impacted in that way. However, remember that this property is now going back on the tax rolls. So all those taxing authorities will get new taxes that they haven't previously been getting from this
I
property.
understand that. Do they get a letter stating that they're going to get their money cut in half? Are they aware of it?
They were, I assume they were noticed?
Yes.
Yes.
None of them care that they're going to get their money cut in half?
I guess you'd have to ask them that.
I was just curious. All right.
Anybody else from the public? Yes, sir.
Jeff Nagel, 1059 North Riverside. How many tenants are we talking, and who exactly are these tenants? Are these employees? Is this open to the public? Short of breath, sorry.
No problem.
Phil, curious.
Yeah, so their proposal is 64 apartment units. Their primary audience is going to be people working at the St. Clair Inn. However, people outside of the employment with the inn will be able to apply to be residents there.
So it's not, in the old days, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like the kids in this town held these jobs, and we don't have that many kids anymore. Is that what's going on? Are we moving an employment demographic here?
Well, I guess I'm not clear on what you're asking, but I'm going to take a stab at it. And then if I don't give you the
No, that's okay.
correct answer, then maybe you can rephrase your question. But I think the point behind this is that there's a concern that there may not be enough workforce locally to take the jobs. I mean, they're going to be creating 300 to 350 jobs between their various properties.
Okay.
And we only have about maybe less than 2,000 people looking for work in the whole county. So their thinking is there are going to be some people coming in from the outside that are probably going to need some place to live. And they're going to be people starting out because the wages that they'll be paying are not, $30 an hour jobs. So their plan was to give them what is called in the industry workforce housing, which basically gives them a relatively affordable place that they can live within walking distance of the inn and also the downtown. I mean, that's part of the benefit of having them in town is they'll be spending some of their dollars locally, right? So I think that's their thinking behind this. Similarly, they're also looking to do the same thing in Port Huron for the same reason. They're looking for a facility to
The other
purchase for
location.
workforce housing, yeah.
So is this going to be tax subsidized by the citizens here? Are we going to be paying into that? Is that coming out of our pockets?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, Fair enough, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else? Council, anything last minute? All right, thank you, Dan. We'll close the public hearing. Move on to number 6, ordinance and resolution, resolution 1916, support adoption of brownfield plan. Jeff Donaldson, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here. And picking up where Dan left off and discussing the Campus Inn project at the old former middle school or high school or whatever incarnation you fondly remember it as. Riverview East is how we refer to it. A brownfield plan has been proposed to address the issue of the facility there, well, not the facility, but the brownfield that has been identified on the property. And that begs the question, what is a brownfield? And we see here there's an overview, an aerial picture of the building itself. So there's different types of brownfields. There's a facility type of brownfield, which is typically those types of brownfields that you think of when you hear the term brownfield. Contamination, underground, dirty soils, think old gas stations, old factories, that sort of thing. There's also brownfields that are blighted. A blighted brownfield is a building that's been identified to be a nuisance, perhaps a hazard for the local community, children playing in the community. It can be considered a dangerous building, or it could also be a tax-reverted building, a building that's held by a local land bank, and a few other criteria that would establish it as a blighted facility. There's brownfields that are deemed to be brownfields because they are what it's been called functionally obsolete. And Dan, who just spoke to you, identified some of the issues that exist in the old high school there, and what would sort of qualify that as functionally obsolete. Essentially, the building was built in the 20s. The technology of it, et cetera, does not lend itself to reuse in its capacity and its size for little if anything else. So that would be essentially why you could find or deem it to be what would be called a functionally obsolete building or therefore a brownfield. And then lastly, also brownfields can be buildings that are of historic resource that are registered or identified on a national, state, or local historic designation, if you will. So what is a brownfield plan? It's a document that details the proposed project, the anticipated tax increment revenue based upon the investment that is to take place, what specific eligible activities that will be undertaken during the project are identified in the plan, their costs and the time frame for the project, and then lastly, it's important to note that a brownfield plan is subject to approval by local jurisdiction. In other words, in this case that we're talking here, this brownfield plan was developed using assessment dollars that were received by the county's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority from the US EPA. Those were what were used to develop the brownfield plan, do all the work to identify the tax tables and et cetera and whatnot. And ultimately, if this brownfield plan is approved here locally, would go to the County Brownfield Authority, actually not to the County Brownfield Authority, they've already recommended it to this board for approval. It would ultimately go to the County Board of Commissioners for final approval, but they would not take action, of course, unless it was approved locally. So the focus of this plan is the redevelopment of the old high school, as we talked about. The focus of proposed redevelopment is the creation of workforce development, housing that we've heard of. And it's important to note that the brownfield plan provides for reimbursement of eligible activities associated with that redevelopment through tax increment capture. And this next slide is going to talk a little bit about brownfield tax increment financing. And if you see, there is, and I'm just going to step over here real quick, and then I'll step back. There's this gray area here, a line, baseline property value, and then a bump up there at the end. So in this particular case, it's a unique, somewhat of a unique situation because it is a school building, so it's currently not on the tax rolls. However, as Dan identified, the local, this community did have to establish a market value for it at the time the property transacted. and became uncapped, those numbers which Dan identified are $223,882 for the land, $252,370 for the building. That represents that baseline right here. And with a brownfield plan, it does not look at capturing any of the taxes under that baseline. In other words, the local community is held harmless for a period of time as far as what could be potentially captured on that property based on the time the brownfield plan initiates. That being said, there is investment in the property, and the property's value will essentially go up. And over a period of time, that new increment of taxes that is generated by the value put into that property and the new assessment that's associated with it gets captured. The developer or the owner of the property has to pay it, but it gets captured, and it goes back to reimburse eligible activities incurred by various parties, including the developer, to get that property ready for productive reuse beyond its current functional obsolescence. So it closes that gap. So we've heard a little bit about some of the funding options and resources that are going into this project. This talks a little bit about them. I know that historic tax credits have been considered by the developer. There's a program called PACE for Energy, or PACE for Energy Efficiency Improvements. That's something, and I believe that's been discussed by the developer, that may be applied to this project. That's where energy improvements, energy efficiency improvements, they're invested in the property, can be financed at the front and then paid off through a special assessment that's attached to the as sort of a tax lien, if you will, on the tax bill over time, and it's attached to the property itself. So if it ever transacts, whoever buys it, buys that tax lien and continues to make those payments with the tax payments for the energy improvements that come along with the property. There's also, as I'm here to talk about tonight, brownfield tax increment revenue. So the number that I had, and this was some number I put down on this presentation some time ago as far as anticipated private investment, and that number has fluctuated based on various drawings and manifestations of what the final vision will be for this project. I had it listed as $3,750,000. I heard that perhaps that number has gone up a little bit to $4.3 million. So that range can be what would be considered to be anticipated private investment. Anticipated new jobs. Indirectly, this project is helping leverage 300 to 350 jobs if you take into account everything this project is assisting with. And this project, keep in mind, is workforce housing, so it's assisting with the St. Clair Inn, the Harrington Inn, and perhaps some other developments that might take place within our greater community over time. So ultimately, it could be looked at as leveraging 300 to 350 jobs. The total reimbursement to the developer through the captured taxes and developer and other parties over the period of the brownfield plan is anticipated to be $1.5 million. The total tax increment captured for countywide local brownfield redevelopment fund would be anticipated to be about $596,526. The total tax increment capture allowed during the brownfield plan in total, when you add that all up, would be $2,141,276. And that is all done over a period projected to be 23 years, commencing when the project is completed and the new assessment takes place at December 31st of whatever year that project, when it essentially gets its new C of O and gets its new assessment. So with regards to the approval process for a brownfield plan, this plan, as I've identified, was funded, and the development of it was funded through a county grant that the county's Brownfield Authority received. What's actually a coalition of entities that came together to apply for it. And that coalition is made up of the city of Port Huron Township, city of Marysville, the St. Clair County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and the St. Clair County Land Bank Authority. Those entities came together and applied for funding from the EPA some time ago. with the understanding that if they were to successfully get that funding, which they did, they would spend it not just within their jurisdictions, but throughout the community. Each of them with the hopes that they would get at least one project or an opportunity to spend some money within each of their own jurisdictions. So this is a perfect example of these dollars that were applied for and received by that coalition being spent out of their jurisdiction, if you will. So the county's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority developed the plan and took action back in July to recommend approval to this council. And if this council takes action and passes a resolution of support for this plan tonight, it would then go on to the county's Environmental Public Works Committee, which is a subcommittee of the County Board of Commissioners that meets later this week. And then ultimately, the County Board of Commissioners could consider it as early as their first full meeting later this month. And that being said, I'm here before you this evening to ask if you would take consideration the resolution you have before you, which is a resolution resolving that pursuant to the authority vested in the City Council of the St. Clair by the Act, and the Act being the state's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Act, this plan is hereby supported in the form attached to this resolution, which you will all have before you. That being said, I'm available for any questions.
A resolution or support for that will be in order before we open up to any other questions or concerns.
Your Honor, I make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Support.
All right, the motion is made and supported. Is there any questions? Any questions from the public? Call the roll, please.
Ellery?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Koopa?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yes.
Watt?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Good job.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Go to number 7, reports of administration. Ms. Sturdy, you have anything for us tonight?
I do, just a few quick things. Just another update on North 6th Street and Brown. The repaving projects are complete. And then 2, save the dates. The Community Report Forum for the First Impression Tourism Grant will be held Thursday, September 19th from 5:30 to 8 at Pine Shores. And the Master Plan Update Open House will be Thursday, October 3rd at 5:30 to 7 here at City Hall. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, master plan is October 3rd.
Yes,
Right. That's open to everybody.
yes.
Yeah. All right, any questions for Ms. Sturdy? All right, Mr. Downey, do you have anything?
I have nothing this evening, Your
Any
Honor.
city departments out there tonight? Go to D, authorities, boards, and commissions. Anybody have anything? We have no unfinished business. Number 8, we'll go to 9, new business. A, special event permit, Gearing Elementary PTO. Call it run, chief.
Good evening. I've received a request from Gearing to have their 5K color run on September 28th. All their paperwork is in order, and I recommend that you approve it.
Motion to approve. Support.
Motion made, supported. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? B, special event permit, St. Peter's Lutheran Church Oktoberfest.
Again, I've received a request from them to have their annual Oktoberfest on October 11th and 12th. All their paperwork is in order, and I recommend.
Motion to approve. Support.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Chief, purchase of 2020 utility police interceptor.
I need a car, so I'm requesting a 2020 utility police interceptor. It's a Ford Explorer. It would come from Signature Ford from Owasso, which is on state bid number 2118 at the purchase price of $32,649. It has a 36-mile warranty and 100,000 miles, 60-month powertrain warranty. This will replace our 2010 Dodge Charger, which currently has 100,000 miles on it. I do have money in my 2018-19 budget. We will not take delivery on this for up to 120 days after we order it, so. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Support.
All right, the motion's been made, supported. Any questions?
Does this 32,000 include the police package?
It does not.
How much is the police package?
That's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8. I haven't got a bid back on that yet. Depends on what I put on it. If I go with no top lights and just interior, it can be a lot less, so I'm just
Sure.
The biggest expense is the computers that we use. I gotta get those loaded, so.
Chief, what are you doing with the vehicle that this is replacing?
I'm gonna get rid of it.
Okay, but how, like how?
St. Clair Chrysler probably gonna be upset because I've been spending a lot of money with them for it, but yeah, we're gonna put that on the bid site.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions? Call the roll, please.
You got it.
I'm sorry.
So Claimant 1375 South Riverside, what are we doing with the old one?
It's gonna go on the bid site. The Charger,
Pardon me?
the 2010 Charger is gonna go on the bid site, the state bid.
All right, and what about the sirens and the lights and all that? Is that part of this package or that
No.
extra?
A lot of that will transfer, but the cage from the Charger won't fit in Explorer, so we'll have
So
to.
what's the cost to put all that stuff on top of this?
It's gonna be probably between 6,000 and 8,000.
All right, and what was I gonna ask? I forgot. I'll think of it.
Anybody else? All right, call the roll, please.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Koopa?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yes.
Watt?
Yes.
Ellery?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
Thank you, Chief. All right, let's go to D, bid proposal for additional public parking. If you remember, the Pine Street parking bid came in high. We sat down with the engineers, and they figured out a way to get it back down to about 61. Dee's here to kind of go through some of the ifs and buts about it. Dee, you want to step up here, please, and give us your rendition of this?
Yes, we actually bid it out, and it was by invitation. We sent it out to 6 contractors in the area. The price originally come in at $100,400. We took some stuff out of it, some of the allowances and that sort of stuff. Got it down to $61,250. Raymond was the low bidder on the original, and that's who we negotiated it with. That really works out to about $2,600 a parking spot. We eliminated 2 parking spots on Pine Street and 1 on Fifth, the one that would have been in between the 2 light poles. But we still end up with 26 parking spaces. So, if you have any questions, we just need a little more money. You're not going to get it any cheaper than that. And we don't want to lose that foundation grant neither.
I make a motion we approve it as presented, Your Honor.
Support.
All right, the motion is made and supported to, Dee, stay right up there. The motion is made and supported to approve the additional spending of approximately $8,000. Any questions? Call the roll, please.
Koopa?
Yes.
Laporte?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yes.
Watt?
Yes.
Ellery?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
All right. I just wanted to ask you, did you get a chance to go look at 9th Street from them trucks?
Yes, I did. I really didn't see any real damage there, nothing different than I've seen for the last year or so.
I saw a couple spots that looked like they...
Well, I don't know that, he said they crack filled it, but I don't know that they did it this past summer yet. So, I mean, I'll find out from Bob whether they crack filled it.
Okay.
If they did, they missed some cracks. So I'm not really sure.
Because there's one spot right in front of Mr. Blake's house where you can see where the road has dipped down now. And I don't think that was there before.
I don't know.
All right.
I really didn't notice it. That street is holding up halfway decent, but, you know, when you get down towards Cass to Clinton, it doesn't seem to hold up. The under drainage must not work that good or something like that.
And Butch, didn't you tell me you saw some places on 10th Street that looked pretty shaky?
Yeah, there was at least 3 or 4. Actually, one of them was right in front of Mr. Kufa's place.
So maybe tomorrow you and Bob can go out and take a closer look at that and find out if we need to take some action with these people?
Can do that.
Thank you. All right. Go to E. Approve ECSD Facility Use Mutual Operating Agreement.
I'll take that item, Your Honor. In council's packet is a mutual operating agreement with the East China School District and the City of St. Clair for facility usage. It's a renewal of the annual contract. This one's just a little bit different because of the changes to facility availability, so the lease is actually a little bit less. So the recommendation today would be to approve the agreement as presented for September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2020.
Motion to approve.
Support.
All right, any questions? Call the roll, please.
Support?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yes.
Watt?
Yes.
Ellery?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Koopa?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
All right. Number 10 is claims of accounts for August 22nd and 29th, 2019.
Hearing no questions, Your Honor, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Support.
Any questions?
Just I noticed that they give us two sheets and they're totally different. I mean, is the second sheet, is that the way it's going to get shown now with no description on anything?
Are you referring to
The
under description, like how it's?
Yeah, there's no
noted?
description on the, on this sheet. All it's got is just the vendor, doesn't say what it's for.
Oh. I believe that's just the
Okay.
wrong report presented to you.
Okay.
So it will be in the standard form from now on.
Okay.
Any other questions?
They were run on different dates, is what I think. You have a new accountant.
We do.
It's all the same
Just
numbers.
asking a question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Going on number 11, public comment, public questions. Anybody have anything from the group tonight? Yes, sir.
Bill Clinton, 1371 South Riverside. Any word from the township on Oak Street?
Still working on trying to get a meeting with them.
And council agenda in the minutes, they don't appear on the website anymore.
I am aware of that, and I have been working with the website developer in our IT department because on my computer, everything is up to date, and on several people that I've asked to check on their computers, it's up to date. However, I know for a fact other people pull it up on their website and it's not up to date. So we haven't come to a conclusion on why that's not updating properly. We are in a rebuild right now of the website, so that's my opinion, is perhaps they're messing with each other. So we do have a cityofstclair.com active website, and then we have one in development. So I am aware of that. I apologize there, and I don't know what else to do until we have the new website up.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
I'm Randall Hanson. I'm the lease agent for Smoothie Exploration. Mayor and City Council, it's been probably 6 months since we were last here. I thought I'd just come and give you an update and answer any questions you might have. Shortly after we got the city's approval on their lease, we did send out 220 letters. As of last week, we've leased 150 parcels within the city. I know it's taken longer than everybody thought it would, but we figured it was probably a year-long project. And we continue to work on the last 68 parcels. I've only received a handful of people that have asked us not to stop back, and so we've honored their wishes. Any questions from anybody?
What's next?
I've got to get the rest of those folks leased. Then Mr. Schmoody will decide what his unit's going to be, and he'll apply for a drilling permit from the DNR. And once that's granted, drilling's likely to occur. I know he is still very eager to prove up that there's gas underneath the city.
All right, any questions for Randall? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Ben. Anybody else in the public? Mr. Casey?
Dan Casey, 1923 Ash Street, St. Clair. We don't often give out kudos or thank yous to people as much as we should, so I thought a couple of things might be in order. The first is I drive by the park every day, at least twice a day, in preparation for the construction that's going to be taking place soon. And I just want to say, I don't know if it's Public Works, I don't know if it's the volunteers, but whoever is staging that is doing a great job, in my opinion. It looks like they're going to have a very organized event, which means that hopefully the park will get built on time. So just if you could pass that on to whoever's responsible, I'd appreciate it. And then lastly, I think, some kudos are in order for Miss Sturdy. She's taken on a tremendous burden by being the interim here, trying to keep the city moving ahead while doing her city clerk job. That's very difficult to do. And other than a website snafu, it seems like everything's working out great. So congratulations.
It's always
to you as
technology.
well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Anybody else?
John Shinsky, 937 Thornapple. I just want to know if the city is keeping an eye on Adams Street from 9th Street to the water plant. We got a lot of heavy trucks going down there. I think between Friday and today we've had at least 20 to 25 asphalt trucks, plus all the gravel trucks that are going for that new apartment complex, and it's putting a little strain on the road. And I was wondering if anybody's keeping an eye on that. Maybe we can get DeLoss, if that's his job now, to do that.
He's all over it.
And
We're sicking them on that tomorrow, actually.
And secondly, my neighborhood is starting to go downhill. Seems like we got a bad spot over on 8th Street, the old school in the back. We got people selling their house now because of the conditions back there. Now, is this glint that you're giving me, Mr. Mayor, that you don't know about this, or the conditions back there?
Oh, no, I know what you're talking
Okay,
about. Yeah.
if there's something they can do, put a fence up,
Yeah.
put a blinder on the fence or something, so people don't have to look at it.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And thirdly, have they made any decisions where the inn's going to park?
That's still in process.
Because they're using up a lot of land for buildings, and there's not much parking. And I'm understanding they got 3 weddings they're getting planned there. So
Thank you.
there's nothing on that then.
No, that's been still in process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, we'll go to number 12. Mayor and Council, I have a couple quick things. Imagination Station rebuild, mentioning that is September 10th to the 15th. 10th to the 15th. You can go online and sign up for an actual shift or show up. They need all kinds of help, obviously. September 7th is a pop-up gala down in the mall. September 21st is the community cares at the cemetery. That's from 10 to 2. What else am I missing? Anything?
No, well, until St. Mary's at the end of the month.
St. Mary's at the end of the month, that's right.
That's pretty conclusive.
Anybody? Yes, sir.
When's garbage pickup this week?
Friday. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Isn't that what I saw at Friday?
That's correct.
No.
Hearing nothing
Right.
else? Are we good?
Good.
Hearing nothing else, I make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye. Thanks for coming, everybody. Careful going home.